And that is lockdown 3.0 is officially over in Victoria with the lifting of restrictions from 11:59 p.m. tonight. Now, many people would like the lifting of restrictions to go further, Rita. But make no mistake, today is a huge leap forward back to normality for Victoria, which means it's a great day for all of Australia. The fact that 75% of people can now return to offices is a great step and will be a vital boost for the central city of Melbourne, which has been hit harder than any other place in Australia. Now, looking forward, there are still things that I'd like to see happen more quickly as well. Firstly, I think international flights are still barred from arriving in Victoria until the government is certain it has the systems in place to stop another Holiday Inn type outbreak. Well, they need to get that fixed up quick smart because we cannot keep our borders closed. If Sydney can do it, then Melbourne should be more than capable of receiving large numbers of international visitors. The second thing, and I think you'll agree on this one, Rita, is that the Anzac Day parade must go ahead. It was a very, very sad day that there was no Anzac parade in 2020 in Melbourne, and it would be an absolute tragedy if it did not go ahead for 2 years in a row, especially considering the age of some of the people who march in that parade. In other COVID news, the vaccine rollout commenced this week, and hastening slowly would be how I would describe the first week of jabs. Take a look at this graph showing the projected rollout of the vaccine versus what actually happened this week. Oh. It shows we have started at a snail's pace and have a long, long way to go. This next graph I want to show you, taken from the Australian Government website, shows how each state is performing in terms of vaccine doses administered. Now, we all love some friendly interstate rivalry, and this graph gives us plenty to talk about. Firstly, it shows that New South Wales is once again heading the pack with 5,500 jabs administered this week. Victoria is just under 3,000 doses, which even on a per capita basis has Victoria behind New South Wales. It's very interesting to see WA coming in third, but have a look at Tasmania, who have in just 1 week administered more doses than both South Australia and Queensland. And Queensland in particular seems to be lagging with less than 1,000 doses administered. Perhaps they've been too busy celebrating that Olympics win, but more on that later in the program. Rita, you often...
You know what? That was possibly the sanest, most sensible editorial you've ever delivered on this station on the many years you've appeared. I think we've had an impact on you on the Friday Showdown. I think we're dragging you to the centre just ever so slowly. There was a lot of sense in that. Normally I'm sitting here rolling my eyes, shaking my head. It's almost like I'm having an episode. But no, that was pretty spot on. Anzac Day, spot on. How hard Melbourne's been hit. And you made a couple of other great points there, but just on that Olympics, one, the Olympics aren't the prize they once were. That's why the competition for them is nowhere near what it once was. And that was before COVID even hit. Even before COVID, cities were looking at this and going, we don't want to be bankrupted for a short-term little spike in global attention where the mathematics don't work out, the cost doesn't equals the benefit. Are we happy for Queensland to get it? Do Australian taxpayers who've watched Queensland close their borders, not carry their weight in taking overseas arrivals, in saying stuff like Queensland hospitals are for Queenslanders and New South Wales hospitals are for New South Wales people? Are we really willing to put our hands in our pocket to allow Queensland to have the Olympics glory?
Well, look, this is very odd. I've got to begin at least by agreeing with you, Rita, in saying that I thought the news that Brisbane was set to win the Olympics, or South East Queensland was set to win the Olympics, that announcement seemed quite muted to me this week. I mean, I'm old enough to remember Juan Antonio Samaranch standing there saying, the winner is Sydney. And, it was a moment of national jubilation. We're all glued to our seats watching it on the telly. But, it just, where were the, full page wraparounds of every newspaper in the country announcing what is going to be the victory? Where was the jubilation out on the streets, the National Party? It all, I don't know, maybe COVID-19 has just sapped us of our energy, but it just didn't seem to lift up to the normal hype.
Yeah, I think one is a cost thing. I think people are savvy enough to know this thing doesn't come cheap. No matter how much the IOC says, oh, no, you don't have to build new stadiums, you can use existing infrastructure. We know it's going to come with a cost. So I think that's got an issue to do with it. We've seen interest in live sport not be as high as you would expect. You would think with people sort of locked indoors and not much to do and less live sport, but the Oz Open just finished and TV ratings were down more than 30%. Massive drop in interest in that event. So I don't know, maybe it's a continuation of that. But something else you said in your editorial, which I want to agree with you on, this feels very strange indeed, is the ridiculously slow pace that we are unrolling this vaccine program. The rest of the world got a head start on us, but if you're going to start late, at least have some speed about it. I mean, this is a pathetic numbers. Even New South Wales, which is well ahead of every other state, only 5,500 in a week. When you look at what Israel's managed to do, you look at other countries, and yeah, we're not riddled with disease here, but our borders are closed. Our economy is suffering. We need to get back on track and open up our borders.
I agree. Vaccines are ultimately the pathway to us getting back to normality. As you said, borders opening, mask-free living in every setting. It's the vaccine that's ultimately going to get there. And if you look at the UK, where they've rolled out millions of vaccines, the US that has done similar, and as you mentioned, the exemplar, Israel, is just miles and miles ahead. But of course, it's not all good news in the US and the UK, and we do like to compare ourselves a lot to them.
No, we don't. Not when it comes to COVID. It's a nonsensical argument. It really is. It's something that Dan Colt bring up to try to justify their man's incompetence. We are not the UK. We are not the US. We closed our borders back in March last year, and we don't have that issue. So